Hello and welcome to Alien Addict on this fine Saturday. I shall keep the bit where I try and sell you stuff as short as possible. Obviously, do the like, share, and subscribe thing. We have podcasts, we have merch. Go and get them at the places where you get the podcasts and the merch from. Make sure you leave a comment on whatever you're watching us on. If you're listening to this later on in the podcast form, give us a 5-star review. Say whatever you want. You can say nasty stuff. I don't care. We want those 5 stars. Without further ado, David, Ashton, how are we doing?
Doing great, man. How are you guys doing?
Good,
man.
You ready for the big announcement?
I am.
Okay, guys.
An exclusive.
I've thought about it for a long time. Decided
Is this exclusive?
This is exclusive. It's
All
time
right.
to come clean, guys. You got me. I'm the one who made the videos. I've been perpetuating a hoax on you guys this whole time. You fell for it. I'm a VFX expert. I'm coming out. I'm telling you guys, I've been hiding my skills this whole time. I built this whole case up just to trick the entire internet so that I could get on Joe Rogan. All you guys fell for it. 6 months in the making. Actually, I made those videos 10 years ago. And now here I am, and I waited for the long con of 10 years later to come out with it, guys. Wow. Can you believe it?
It's the long game. The long game wins.
Man.
For anyone who's out there,
amazing
knows I'm
patience.
joking. I did not make the videos. It's been a crazy few days. People are thinking all kinds of wild stuff about me out there.
Don't say don't.
No.
Let's
Let's not backstep now. Let's
No. Like
forward.
if you'd have carried it on just a little bit longer, it would have been like you were edging Mick West.
That's what she said.
No, I don't want to make these people have a full-on meltdown. I think that's already enough. They're going to clip that out of context now, and they're going to use that against me. So that'll already be funny enough. We can keep the drama going for another few weeks until I retire from the case out there. But no, in all seriousness, the amount of stuff people are coming up with recently is just so wild, right? I've got people who are FOIAing, doing Freedom of Information Act requests to the AARO because they think that I'm lying about that. I've got people calling up Joe Rogan's producers because they think that I faked some communications with him and that I've been lying about it. For what goal that would be, I have no idea. I mean, wouldn't that easily get me caught? So you got to have a little bit of fun with it because this is just absolutely. It's been such a weird experience. This whole case, everything related to it. I mean, you got to laugh, otherwise you're gonna cry, I think.
Well, I think the funny thing is when you consider like these big podcasts all kind of hang around with each other and speak to each other. The fact that you were on Tim Pool, then shortly after that you were on InfoWars, it makes more sense than not that Rogan would have got involved in there somewhere along the lines. I don't understand why that's broke people, but it's
I didn't think it would be that crazy. Like, because I brought it up because it's like one of the biggest things that's ever happened, right? I woke up one morning, I think it was a little over a week ago, right? And I'm getting in the bath, or okay, you guys got me. I like to take baths, but I'm looking at my phone, right? Looking at the messages.
FOIA that.
That's
that, guys.
Suspect right
That's
there.
real.
I believe that's an Illuminati cult ritual.
And you look at your DMs and you're like, wait, that says Joe Rogan. Like, what? Right. And so you look at it and you're like, this has got to be a fake account, right? And then you see the 12.2 million followers. And I'm like, holy shit. Right. And so it's like, you're like, wow. And it's hard to not talk about, right? Because wow. So I only told some people that are like, my personal sphere that don't have social media and stuff like that, right away. Because I also didn't want it to fall through, because I knew that, like, I've talked to a lot of podcasters and everybody tells me they've got people that yell at them about not having me on, making up fake stuff about me, whatever. Right. So I didn't want that to happen. And I'm sitting there thinking about it, and I'm sitting there going, man, this is wild. Like, I'm a little bit worried about going on Joe Rogan because this is millions and millions and millions of people. Right. And, I had seen the hostile reactions that I've been getting, and they've only been ramping up. And it makes me worried about what would happen if this information goes mainstream regarding a lot of this. And then the next day, he messaged me back. I had actually worked the stuff out with the booking agent, like gave him my information. We had the date set up and everything, right? And the next day he comes back and he says, I need to put a pause on this. Like, I've found these debunks. I think this might be a hoax. He saw this Reddit post that's been pinned that they claim they found these cloud pictures, and we had done a rebunk of the cloud picture thing over a month ago. And then he also saw he also links to me the Danny Jones interview, not any specific part of it, just like the whole thing, where it says like whatever exposed by VFX thing, which is just like that was just complete dishonesty by Danny Jones. Like,
I mean, the one you were on?
yeah,
He sent you the video of the show you were on.
yeah, the show I was on. I'm like, and you know, I haven't shown all the DMs, but like I go back and say, hey, I told him the truth about it, which is like Danny literally falsified a fake description of that video, even after calling me several times to like bargain with me about what he should call it. And I kept telling him, don't call it something like exposed because it's not, and that's dishonest, and you're gonna get negative feedback. And that was exactly what happened after he called it exposed. You had all these people. If you guys remember that saga of the Julian,
I remember watching it live.
Danny
I was
Jones.
amazed how the
everyone was expecting me to like get like burned or whatever,
Mhm.
right? And like it didn't end up happening. And then slowly, I was watching it live. That's one of the only podcasts I've watched live in retrospect. And you could tell the people in the chat were getting more and more disappointed, like their team's about to lose, right? And they realize that it's inevitable that they're not going to win. It was that same kind of feeling. And you get to the end, and then people start trolling Danny and Julian because they had been lying about it. And Danny starts having a meltdown in the chat, starts banning people.
That was
because
hilarious, by the way. He
really
did have a full-on meltdown. And then he was
he had a
removing his
full
own
meltdown
comments.
in his own
Yeah.
chat. Was removing all these comments. He still has removed a ton, but even if you go look at there, you can still see there's a ton of negative comments because of the way he like treated me and the way that he lied about like what the summary of the podcast itself. And if you compare to all the other stuff where he's talking to people that are talking about angels and demons and all this stuff, like he never does anything like this, right? But for me, for some reason, it was this personal attack. So anyway, I don't think Joe Rogan even actually watched it, because I think if he had watched it, he would realize that's not how it played out. Yeah. But the other part too is that, you know, this just goes to show how powerful disinformation is, right? And whatever you believe about the cloud image or the pyromania VFX, whatever, like there's still a huge case here to look into, right? Like I've got 14 pages of evidence of stuff that's very difficult to understand how somebody had faked it, including coordinates that we've recently showed. The raw data for those coordinates wasn't even available till May 28th, 2014. That's over a week after the video was published. So what was this person using their psychic powers to figure out where they should put the coordinates in the satellite video? Like people have just got to come to terms with the fact that like so much of the details of these videos are so specific and just there's no basis. Like we had a VFX artist in my Discord that basically come out and said, what's the reference copy for this? Because they've done so much work on movies and stuff like that, that whenever you're a visual effects artist, you always reference something, like you're trying to make it look like something else, right? But these videos don't have any reference at all, right? They're just completely original works. And even if you take this 2D cloud picture, that's only one small aspect. This person that actually tried to recreate the satellite video, they use this 2D asset to try to do it. They copy the mouse movement. They copy the coordinate shifts. The only unique aspects they make are the plane, the orbs, and the zap, and all of them are totally fake looking. That's the only original aspects. And so you look at this and you go, nobody's even come close to recreating these videos, even though they have something to copy the actual videos. And yet the person that made them in a few weeks with no reference whatsoever, how did they do it, right? Like there's still a huge debate to be had here regarding this. And then if you look at it from the perspective of what would somebody do if this is real and this is the government actually did this and has hiding this technology, they would go to literally any lengths to, you know, cover it up. They would easily fabricate a fake picture based on the videos and then post it on somebody's cloud storage and then send them a message from an anonymous account and go, hey, here's this thing that you should go make a debunk video on. They would definitely do that. No doubt. Right. They would probably go a lot further than that, you know? So I just think that the last thing I want to say real quick, and then we can take some questions, is I was just posting something else today that was Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp on the Joe Rogan podcast from, I don't know how long ago. I think it was less than a year ago. And Jeremy Corbell doesn't even know what a superconductor is, right? He's sitting there and he's going, oh yeah, and I was talking to this guy that got some device and he was reverse engineering it, and he was talking about some supercapacitors, and I'm sitting there going, wait, does he mean superconductors? And then they kind of figured out, oh no, he's talking about superconductors. And they're like, what is a superconductor? And I'm just going, holy shit, they don't even understand the basics of why this technology is so revolutionary. Like, even without UFOlogy, without these videos, just room temperature superconductivity will change everything on our entire planet, right? And this is also, I don't mean to dig at Eric Weinstein, but when he said he's not interested in room temperature superconductivity, kind of hurts his credibility a little bit, because I don't know if he doesn't understand the implications or he just thinks it's fantastical and fantasy, but it's not, right? And then Joe Rogan and Jeremy Corbell are like, oh, well, hasn't that been debunked? And then George Knapp's like, well, it's been debunked several times, but they keep, trying to retest it or whatever. And I'm just going, this is how all this stuff's being suppressed, right? People are just going, oh, well, that was debunked. We don't need to look into that anymore. I'm sitting here literally showing videos of flux pinning and the Meissner effect on 2 different videos of LK99, which essentially proves superconductivity, and also I can explain at least superconductivity and why it's so revolutionary. Mag trains, hoverboards, computers that don't heat up, wireless power. We lose like 30 to, I don't know what the exact percentage, 30 to 70% of power transfer is lost due to heat. Well, room temperature superconductive wires would make that go down to 0. How about the Large Hadron Collider? That uses superconductors when around that huge ring, and they have to be cooled. I believe they use liquid nitrogen, but I'm not sure, all the time. Just that alone wouldn't require that. It's very easy to look at these videos and go, well, if you have something that normally, like these magic videos where you see this thing shuffling around like a magnet, like it's stuck on it, right? And you realize they have to use all this energy to allow that to cool it down. If you took away all that energy input requirement, it's very easy to imagine a situation where you could have like a fusion reactor that's very small, captured in a magnetic field that is being created by superconductivity. And so that's the part where I just don't know. The last thing I'll say, and I know I said that a couple times, is that I don't think we're ready for this. Like, I just think when I see those interactions between somebody as huge as Corbell and Knapp and Joe Rogan, and they have no idea what the implications of room temperature superconductivity are, it makes me think that, wow, like we need to really go back to the basics with this. We're probably still years, if not decades, away from really realizing the implications of this technology and how much it would change our planet. And as much as it'd be great for me to go on Joe Rogan and talk about it, it's going to go over most people's heads, right? And we're just not there scientifically from the public perspective yet.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the Rogan thing goes, when he does a really good job at being the layman that people explain complicated things to. But if you get him and George Knapp there, we're never, you're never solving world hunger, are you, from that conversation? But I mean, I'd still love to see it. I'd still love to see her on Rogan, go through it all again. It's been like from the minute you dragged it up, it's been the elephant in the room which wouldn't go away. No matter how many people tried to shoot at it, it just stayed there. Was it, you said well, I think it was on a tweet or something like that it was the interaction with Rogan that had made you decide to sort of retire from the case. Was it something else he said, or was it just strictly the
no, it actually wasn't really related to him. I mean, the way it kind of went down is that so he came back with that, said, he wanted to put a pause on it. Mm-hmm. And then I was just thinking about it in terms of, well, I mean, that's the ultimate goal, right? Like, government's never going to make a statement on this stuff. Like, we know that at this point. They're never going to let the mainstream media touch it. So I've been going up the alternative media ladder, right? Talking to various people, Alex Jones, Tim Pool, Coast to Coast Radio, everyone that's out there. The last people that I really targeted are like Lex Friedman, Sean Ryan, Joe Rogan. Mm-hmm. And I accidentally revealed DMs with Lex Friedman once. I think that has the same belief that like Joe Rogan does, and it wouldn't surprise me as well if Sean Ryan did as well. I had a couple DMs with him as well that didn't come to fruition. So thought about it from that perspective and thought we've exhausted all the opportunities, right? I can keep doing all these other small podcasts if I want, but it becomes exhausting after a while. And because then I thought of the lay of the land, right? With the toxicity that you guys have been seeing, that I've been getting directly. And I just think, in order for people to realize that I'm just a normal person who's not invested in this the way that they imagine I am, I need to just step back from it. And if other people want to pick up the case, whatever, I've made all the evidence public. I've never asked for a single dime related to any of this. And then if something else comes up, I can jump back in months or years if there is a major development. If the videos get authenticated by AARO, or if Edward C. Lynn all of a sudden out of nowhere gets a pardon, and everyone's going, whoa, why did he just get a pardon, right? Or something like that, or he comes out as a whistleblower. I'd be happy to come back out of the woodwork, or we start to find out that the science is real as well, right? Room temperature superconductivity. And that's why I figured it'd be best if I step away from it. People can, you can park the MH370 videos and the mythology of all the rest of these other UFO videos that are out there in the past that have been debunked, but people are still wondering maybe they could be real, right? And I'm happy with that. And then I can move on to the part where I would enjoy, which is the science, right? The room temperature superconductivity stuff, LK99. There's supposed to be a new video supposedly coming out in March. I'm not sure if it's going to get suppressed in the West, but I've already got 2 videos that I like to show off. And then the other aspects of it as well, like macroscopic phase conjugation, otherwise known as teleportation, and really anything else that comes out, and that's the stuff that I'm digging into, the stuff that I'm enjoying. And then we'll see in the future. But no, it wasn't necessarily just Rogan. It was just like, okay, we've exhausted those opportunities. It doesn't seem like there's anywhere else to go with this. But the one thing I would say, if Joe Rogan is watching right now, or anybody else, I want to repeat what I said on the Danny Jones podcast, because he asked me, how much do these videos matter regarding the case? And the answer is, at this point, very little. I don't even need the videos to prove that this is a conspiracy, right? There's 2 aspects of this. You have the conspiracy, which is the narrative that most people believe that this was some kind of pilot suicide into the South Indian Ocean. That's objectively a lie. I'm going to go ahead and go on the record and say there's no chance that's how it played out. There's no evidence for it whatsoever. The debris that people think that they found was 3,000 miles away from the supposed crash site. 3,000 miles. Okay. This is not, why didn't the debris wash up on the shores of Australia if it crashed in the South Indian Ocean? It is washing up in Africa, right? I just want people to get this through their heads here. There's no evidence of that at all. So the conspiracy aspect, we can already just prove without any of that. The satellites and the spine, and proving that the satellites are scanning the Earth every 10 seconds. We were able to prove all that without the videos whatsoever. What the videos allowed us to do was find out about the fire scenario. And that explains why the plane never crashed in the South Indian Ocean. Everything lines up in a way where, as hard as it is to believe, those videos are the key to understanding what really happened to the plane. And that's how we found out about Catherine T., who was right there in that same location watching the glowing orange plane. That's how we found out about the fire scenario. That's how we then found out about Mike McKay, the 9 people along the coast, the 8 fishermen on the boat, all corroborating the same lithium-ion battery fire event, where we had been sitting there wondering, there's almost 500 pounds of lithium-ion batteries on this plane. This has got to be related somehow to what happened to the plane. Like, this is just too bizarre that they have all these batteries on there that the Malaysian Airlines CEO lied about until March 20th. That's over a week, 2 weeks after the plane went missing. They finally admit there's extremely dangerous, volatile batteries in the cargo hold. So there's that aspect of it. And then there's the aspect of, okay, well, now we got some orbs spinning around a plane in a sinusoidal pattern, consistent with an electrical engineering 0.120 degree, circuit or pattern, whatever it is. And then this macroscopic phase conjugation event where you've got Salvatore Pais, Bob Grenier, Dave Rossi, who's a contractor with the DOD, as well as Roy D. Herbert, physicist, theoretical physicist, whose colleague, Martin Gibson, also has a unification theory. All these people have unification theories of quantum mechanics and general relativity, and that's how all this stuff is possible. And I'm just sitting here going, okay, guys, what more do you want? I mean, what more do you want here?
It's a good question. I'm kind of happy for you that, I know it seems crazy right now because as you retire, you announced your retirement, and the crazies got crazier, as they tend to do in this world of ufology or whatever. Yeah. That's the problem. People keep calling it a community, and the community is the problem. but I look forward to seeing what you dig into next. I said that before we started. I'm going to say it probably multiple times. You're a bright guy. I like how deeply you dig into things and you go for it. Like I said, we're color commentary at best, and we're not always that funny. But I think as a conspiracy theorist, which I definitely am, if we take a minute, you gotta admire whoever pulled the strings to discredit you, because they got out ahead of all of us. They helped you. Like, it obviously shows to me, like the Danny Jones podcast and that other podcast, booked you so quickly. They released so quickly together. When we saw everyone come out online at like 2 a.m. against you, that controlled effort. And we're like, man, this is ridiculous. And it only boosted and bring more people to your cause. And like, wow, that backfired. Boy, were we short-sighted.
It was the people as well.
Long game.
It was the jumpers guy on on social media. Is it which one is it? John Greenwald or Glenn Greenwald? I always get them.
There's
John
Green
Greenwald. Yeah, he's the one, the FOIA master, the dildo and FOIA master, as I call him, John Greenwald. Yeah, apparently sells dildos.
He just he jumped on it. You had your guy from that did the New York Times thing. I forgot his name as well.
Yeah, that's all right. It's worth forgetting.
Yeah, but it was just an amazing 48 hours, and it to be honest, the craziest thing, and I think one of the worst things they did was drag Julian in, because if from anybody that even bothered like scratching the surface of that, he didn't make sense. No. His YouTube numbers didn't make sense to the subscriber numbers he had, the guests he had, with the views that his videos were getting didn't make sense. Then when you went and had a look at his Twitter and he had like 1,000 followers, you go, hang on a second, you've got 200,000 subscribers on your YouTube channel. That's impossible.
500,000.
Oh, 500,000.
500. Yeah.
Yeah, real quick, if I want to address a couple of those points there too, because let's just say these videos are real, just for the sake of argument right now.
Yeah.
And if so, then yeah, I think that if I'm looking at it from the intelligence community perspective, the ones who are trying to, use counterintelligence to cover them up, right? They messed up big time in the beginning, right? They used their assets, Julian and Danny. Those guys might have just been useful idiots. I'm not sure. But they have all kinds of connections to feds. So many. I mean, the guy was literally talking to the FBI.
Curious, isn't it?
He was talking to Jim DiOrio, legendary spook, legendary fed, while I was there, right? So it would have been so easy to manipulate those guys, and I truly think that they did get manipulated into trying to debunk me, right? And the way they came at me was very transparent, and it backfired, like you guys just said, right?
Yeah.
And when I look back in retrospect, like I've only done 3-4 live interviews, right? It was Confessionals, Tony Merkel, who is like a class act, great guy, incredible, right? And and he even warned me afterwards, be careful which podcasts you go on, right? He gave me a little warning about it, and I didn't really listen. I just kind of thought, I'm just going to do everybody. And so when Julian and Danny called me, I got really excited because a lot of people had been pinging me. I had no idea. I'd never watched any of their stuff before. I'd literally never heard of either of them before that. Right, I thought,
Concrete before he changed the name to like just his name. Concrete has always been.
I had no idea about him though. I'd never watched. I'm not really big into the podcast game, right? I'd known Joe Rogan. That was kind of about it. A little bit about Sean Ryan. Pretty much nobody else. And so I was excited to go on there. I thought this is another opportunity to do what I did with the Confessionals, right? And it wasn't until I get on there that I realized, no, these guys are trying to debunk me. They and that's not how they came across at all. Like they were duplicitous when they talked to me about it beforehand, right? They didn't lead on at all. They both had me sign not releases, which is apparently pretty unusual because I even went on Tim Pool and they said the only reason why I'm making you sign a release on Tim Pool is because he has a skate park downstairs.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But these other guys were making me sign releases because they knew they were going to try to defame me on their shows, right? And they didn't want me to be able to sue them afterwards. So anyone else, just as a warning sign, if anyone tries to get you to sign a release when they go on their show, walk away right away. That's a huge, huge red flag. Just a heads up on that. And so, yeah, like it's very easy to see how they might have been manipulated. Anyway, it did backfire, right? Because I'm just an honest guy. And that's what happens when you go at somebody who's just being honest, is that the people that watch can see right through it. At least the people that aren't, total idiots. Some people are, like the one guy who was yelling at me yesterday, claiming that I that I melted during the concrete podcast. I'm like, oh, okay, man, whatever. But then I think their big move was the cloud thing, right? Whatever they did with that cloud thing, I don't know exactly how they played it out, right? You know, and I want to be careful here because what I'll say is that this guy who took the pictures has threatened to sue me several times. Even though I have him on record saying I've never said anything false about him. And he said, oh, that doesn't matter. You know, in Japan where he lives, like apparently defamation doesn't require truth or something. And I'm like, okay, well, good luck, man.
Get
like,
that settlement in Japan, douche.
But what I do want to say is that, you know, people have shown that it's extremely easy using AI to make a lower quality cloud picture into a higher quality one. People actually, even ahead of time, many months ago, back in like September, used the cloud images of the moving screen, and we're able to make a full screen picture from it using AI. And if we imagine that the government has the ability to teleport and plane and move orbs around like they do in those videos in 2014, then using AI is no problem at all. And if you look up the Vault 7 leaks, it shows that the CIA, NSA, etc., has hacking tools for everything. Putting a picture on the cloud is the easiest thing possible. Changing the metadata is even just trivial, right? So it doesn't even require this person that found the picture, or he didn't even find the picture. That's the most ironic part. He took the picture and was told by somebody else who has
where to find it.
Completely inexplicable story about finding it. Emails him on a burner account and says, hey, you should go make a debunk video. Like the whole story makes no damn sense at all, right? But that was still a good move. So I'm going to give props to the intelligence community. If these videos are real and that was their play, bravo, good move. Because what can I do there, right? I can either go after the guy who's making this debunk video, and then I'm going to look like a douchebag if I go after him, right? And he might not, if he's being a useful idiot, then that's the perfect defense for him, right? Because if he's not the one who falsified the picture or whatever, then he can just play ignorant, right? And he's not technically lying. And then if I go into this angle, which I just mentioned of, the CIA or NSA could have made this picture and posted it on the internet, even back in 2016, they might have had it out there waiting to go. Right. Then people are going to go, oh, well, you're a deep conspiracy theorist. You're going into blah, blah, blah. And these are the same people that are saying that I faked pictures of Joe Rogan. So, I think it's a little hypocrisy, but that's still a good play either way. Right. Yeah. Because now you're going to try to discredit me no matter what I do, how I respond to it. And so the way that I reacted to it is, well, I said 2D cloud picture just doesn't make sense no matter how you look at it, because we had already proved the clouds were moving and evolving naturally the week beforehand. So, to me, it's like, I just don't care. And then the other aspect of it is this: for the people that are skeptical, the people that are believers, whatever, basically every single video that's out there has been debunked some one way or another.
Correct.
Right? Even the one that I think was showing up last week with this jet and they've got the UFO out the window or whatever, they say, oh, it's a reflection, whatever. Every single thing out there has been debunked one way or another. So at some point it just becomes an aspect of like, you either look at the evidence and come up to your own conclusions, or you just believe whatever you're told, right? And it's up to each individual to come to their own terms of whether or not they think the weight of the evidence is powerful enough or not. So just to loop it all back around with the Joe Rogan thing, before he had canceled the next day, I had been sitting there thinking about the whole day going, man, I'm going to become a pariah if I go on this show. And then I'm thinking what I'd like to do on that show is I was actually planning on retiring after that show, is what I had decided if it went through, because the way I was going to present it is say, okay, here are the debunks, here's the evidence. Everybody out there, you make up your own mind on what you believe to be true, right? Because I think that's where we're at with this case at this point. And because he canceled, I think it might be even for the best, where now the case can sit out there, the evidence can sit out there, people can hopefully chill out from attacking me for a while, and then maybe in the future something will come up which will corroborate it, and then people go, maybe that guy wasn't lying about it, maybe those videos are real.
No, then they'll show the clip from the beginning of this show where you admit it was all you.
I just think that conspiracy is so funny. I heard what's this guy? I don't even want to say his podcast name, but some podcaster, wannabe like reaction guy who's trying to come up as a UFO podcaster guy was I heard him talking to somebody else going, oh, I think that Ashton guy made the videos. And I'm just sitting here going, dude, like what okay, go ahead and prove it, right? Like, go ahead and prove it, man. Like, I don't know what you're thinking the evidence of that is. Like, okay, we know the videos are from 10 years ago. I've been in this for the long con, and I'm just coming out now, and I've been in healthcare IT my whole life, and I'm a business major, but I've got secret super VFX skills as good as any like top studio. Like I just don't. You can just watch my live streams. You can tell like I barely even know how to use social media, and I can barely edit and put captions on a video. But I think I've got crazy VFX skills. It's wild.
No need, man. We got your confessions. No, when I look at like the it's never not going to be fun.
I do love the idea though of 2014. You press an export on a thing, and now we wait.
Oh, it's going to be good.
10 years from now, this is going to be. I'm going to go on 70 podcasts, and I'm going to get myself on Joe Rogan. I'm going to reveal that I made it up the whole time. Honestly, guys, if I had made these videos, I would have collected the $150,000. That's when I would have come out.
Yeah.
I would have come out and I've been like, "Sorry, Kim, I got you, bro. I made this. I'm like, you guys owe me. Here's the source work. I'd have it on my hard drive over there, right?" And I would have collected that 150 grand. Hell, I might even done it for 10 grand. That one dude turned down 10 grand. Shit, I'm not turning that down. That
wild. Was the weirdest part of the whole thing. No, what really kind of sold me on the videos was the reaction from those two different podcasts and the green and all these things coming against you. Just sitting back and looking at it and going, why are you leveling both barrels at something that if you would have never addressed would have just gone away? You know what I mean? This is bizarre. But now that we see that if Joe Rogan's quoting it and people in his circle are quoting it, it's the headline thing, right?
Yep.
And then unfortunately, he talks about it on his own podcast. People just read the headline. He just read the title.
That's what they do, right? And you don't look into the evidence. And that's why
on that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just say on that, golf clap to them. But for people who really dig in, they'll find your work. They'll get in there and after it. And then you've woke people up. That's what matters. The people that you've woke up along the way, that's what matters.
I'd be interested to know, like, behind closed doors, what Alex Jones thinks of it, because I think that would be if Rogan had invited you on, then saw the stuff that was like on the surface level that you can find really easy. Because I suppose the thing about this case is because it's gone on for so long now, and you've put so many hours in, especially like your public hours at live streams, 2-3 hour live streams where you've been going over the stuff. To try and get somebody in here now, you basically show them the video and then go right, and there's this huge story after it. It's like somebody trying to jump into QAnon right now. It's because it's this is the sort of thing you've got to be in from season 1 to understand.
So I was going to say on that front, first of all, the thing about the headlines is totally true, right? That's how disinformation is so easy. And months ago, when I was on the confessionals, like one big section was all about disinformation and how the disinformation works, because I watched it happen in real time on Reddit. I watched how they manipulate the message on Reddit. The feds are definitely involved, as well as they call them the militant skeptics as well. I don't think that they're all necessarily feds. I just think that they're mostly just idiots who they believe in the lies that they're told to a degree. It's like the Matrix where they fight back against it, right? And this is the part too where I wish Joe had seen this back in October or November, right? Because if Joe Rogan had seen it back then we would have been able to get the information out there to a wider audience. It would have forced a reaction from the government, right? And before all these people had so much time to develop these debunks that are out there, and let it marinate in. But now you've got all the headlines, right? Nobody reads past them. So it's gotten to a point now where it's just not tenable to keep going forward, unfortunately.
I think one of the biggest services you did for the community was when all these people came out against you. Anyone with eyes can see this is where the government pushes from. We know this about these people. These are outed now. 100%, no ifs, ands, or buts. This is what they're doing.
I think for those that are watching, one of the biggest things you've done is really shone a light on Mick West.
Yeah.
The king of the UFO debunkers turns out to be completely full of shit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that honestly, this is going to be mean to say, but he's got a literal cult built around him at this point, which is just weird to see. People constantly reach out to him okay, Senpai, tell us what we should believe, Senpai. It's just super, super bizarre. especially because he's just some video game developer who's been unemployed for over 15 years. And this is somehow the guy that people should be wanting on their podcast to explain what they should think. Like, it's just, that's not how any of this should work. I don't think Mick West even knows what science even means. If you were to ask him, I don't think he would answer correctly. The correct answer, by the way, is the scientific method. And yes, I think to some degree we've exposed him, but he's already been exposed so many times where like his cult-like followers are never going to see the light, right? He's brainwashed them to such a degree that nothing that seems unusual can ever be real to them. And the huge irony is I've even got him clipped on it. I even got him clipped on one of these podcasts because he came out and started trying to tarnish me on some random no-name podcast that's super, super tiny. And in the middle of it, he goes, these people get so stuck in their mindset that they can't go back, right? And then he goes, and I guess people could say that about me as well. And you're just going, yeah, dude, exactly. Like, yes, you figured it out. That's what you're doing. Like, I don't know what the deal with these people projecting their insecurities is, but the idea that Mick West looks at anything unobjectively is hilarious. The dude is the most, by far, biased, close-minded, militant debunker that is literally out there anywhere, and nobody should be platforming him. Nobody should be talking to him or giving him the time of day. He's not an investigator. He is literally, as far as I can tell, never investigated or solved anything in his whole life. If he was serious about it, what he would be doing is he would be saying, we're going to build a list of evidence for every case, and then we're going to stack it side by side, right? Instead, what he does is he looks for something that he can use to affirm his confirmation bias and then dismiss everything else and never addresses the other side's arguments ever. It's a propaganda war. That's how propaganda works. That's not how information flows, right? He's dodged me on 3 different podcasts already. He wouldn't go on because he knows it's a propaganda war. And for him, he just talks past you, right? I even asked him, like yesterday, he comes into my replies again. And I asked him specifically about the debunks, and he ignores them all and says he's going to mute me, right? Like, this is just straight on closed-minded propaganda. It's not a conversation. He's not interested in a conversation. And anyone who's not interested in a conversation like that should not be given a platform, right? Same way if I were to come out and I'm telling you that this is all real and I never address the debunks, right? Which I do very, very frequently. So to me, when I look at the UFO community, I see just so much dysfunction on both sides. The militant skeptics are as closed-minded, if not more closed-minded, or they're definitely more closed-minded than the people who are the believer side. But both sides are just too in their own head, too in their own opinions to even discuss with one another, which is why I love what Skyfire News has been doing recently, where we are bringing the people together. I mean, there's a lot of shouting matches back and forth, but at least people are talking to one another, and there is some element of getting the facts and the evidence out there, because otherwise it's just people talking past each other, right? And nobody's addressing anybody else's arguments.
Yeah, it's weird with the way other channels, other YouTube channels have gone as well, because I can't work out when it's happened, but there's definitely in recent history where they're just fallen for this. What I think is government propaganda. I'll fucking put my gun in hand to forehead if I have to and say I think Mick West is like, he's paid by somebody. His wages aren't just coming from Metabunk. It's not just it was something like 5 million. I think he made. Was it Signosis that made that game? I can't remember. Anyway, he sold the developers.
I think it's something called Neversoft. I mean, I might have to dig into that
was it,
because I don't know how he supposedly made so much money that he never has to work again. Especially
he made a few million from there was him.
Yeah, he lives cheaply. He gets bargain discount prostitutes.
He lives in the most expensive city in the entire country. As far as I know, he lives in Santa Monica or something like that in LA. I don't know for a fact, but I think so. I've lived there. It's extremely expensive. One thing I've learned about rich people is that they generally don't they don't hate making money, right? They don't stop either. So the real question there is, and I don't know why he dodges this all the time, right? People ask me, one of the first questions I get on almost every single podcast is, what's your job? What do you do, right? They want to know about your background. People never ask that of him. Anybody who does bring Mick West on, first thing should be, okay, if you're not going to show us your tax returns, tell us where you're getting your funding, where you're getting your money from specifically. Be as specific, tell us all, because otherwise it seems like there's a huge conflict of interest. I don't necessarily believe he's being paid by the government to do this, but I think he should be very clear about what his sources of income are related because of his huge bias that he's showing.
Mhm.
He's
I'd
also
like
got a
to know the
book out there he's
steps.
selling.
I'd like
He's
to know the steps. It was him
Yeah.
and two other guys for Neversoft. He sold it after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, I think, because I did a little look into him, nothing crazy. And I think it was X amount of million he made,
Mhm.
or that's like publicly findable from selling that company.
They paid $12 million for it. So
Mhm.
depending on how much he owned, then he's going to get that percentage. I see from
Yeah.
1999, Activision paid, they bought 700,000 shares, total deal, $12.3 million. So
Mhm.
however
Good
much
deal.
shares he had, that will tell you how much he made exactly. And then the question is, you can't live off even a few $1 million is not going to be enough for the rest of your life. Maybe he invested it all in Bitcoin and maybe he's a Bitcoin billionaire. I don't really know. But I think that he should still be transparent in terms of his income and where that income comes from,
Yeah.
because he doesn't monetize his YouTube. He doesn't have a check mark on Twitter. So he's not getting money from those sources. He's paying for the MetaBunk website. So that's all just negative money that's going out, right? He's going on conferences, which almost certainly pay him as
Mhm.
well. And I think being upfront about his sources of income would go a long way towards, if he wants credibility, trying to reestablish said credibility.
I think the most interesting thing would be, to be honest, is how he goes from selling that business to becoming this, like, the debunker. Where are the
To becoming Mick West.
yeah where are the steps in between from forming a company that makes a skateboard game to becoming like the mainstream authority on UFO videos? That's the bit that doesn't make sense to me, is how you get there.
Yeah, and here's what I'll say too, is what I've learned, and this is my opinion only, is that there are definitely exchanges of money that are happening regarding influencers and people online to spread disinformation. I think even who was it, Project Unity, I think spoke to Tim Burchett, and he mentioned this idea that some people are being fed disinformation to get out there. I think even people have wondered whether or not I've been getting spread disinformation, but the answer there is no. I just found these videos the way everybody else found them. I've been reporting on them. There's been no outside influence regarding that at all. But yeah, people that say information like, I'm just going to name names. I don't really give a crap.
Yeah, go
Ross
for it.
Coulthart, coming out and saying, oh, watch Trump or go find the buried UFO or whatever. He's being fed that information 100%. Right. And then the question, and everybody's got to eat, so people want to make money however they want to make it. Great. But I just want people out there to realize that there's absolutely exchanges of money happening. People are probably being told information to spread that they don't know whether or not it's true. Right. And they're just spreading it. Some people are, the useful idiots. Other people might be literally malicious. I have it on pretty good authority that there are even actual government scientists and engineers that know a lot of this advanced technology is real, and they have no problem just going and lying to the public and discrediting other people and claiming that their ideas that are true are actually false. And that's what makes it so easy to hide.
There was a whole
right?
segment, wasn't there? There was a whole segment on a recent Rogan podcast where they were talking about sort of fake, like, mainstream media scientists like Neil deGrasse Tyson and stuff like that.
What has he ever done?
I would rather get my science from Mike deGrasse Tyson.
I like the Cosmos show was good. I used to think that Neil deGrasse Tyson was, a legit physicist, and then you start to see him talk about the stuff, and you realize this guy's probably never been in a lab in his whole life, right? No. And it's okay, even if you have ideas and what have you. But I think that my problem with physics, science influencers, as I call them, the physics influencers, right, is I can't tell if they are being paid to be disingenuous, or if they are just not up to speed at all with current science, right? Because science has advanced so far, even in the last 24 years in the 2000s, to the part now where we should be talking about the stuff that I've been mentioning: room temperature superconductivity, macroscopic phase conjugation, right? The fact that if you ask anybody about the double slit experiment and they're a physics influencer and they just go, I don't know, right? Someone else needs to figure that out. My question is, no, you're the one who needs to figure that out. Like, what is your opinion on how this is possible, right? Because the logical conclusion is coming to a unification theory of quantum field mechanics and general relativity. And once we figure that out, that's where all this stuff opens up. And this is where the crossover with UFOlogy comes into play, right? This is how we get crafts that are hovering around and how we can enable potentially ships coming to us. Oh, and this reminds me of something else I want to talk to you guys about is LIGO. So LIGO is studying neutron stars, combining and looking and seeing the gravitational waves, which according to Roy D. Herbert confirms his theory of dilation theory, which is a unification theory of quantum and macro as well. And I've been told that if LIGO were to turn up the sensitivity, that they would potentially be seeing gravity waves all over the place in outer space. And you know why they'd be seeing those gravity waves is because there would be crafts manipulating gravity everywhere they go, right? Just like if you were to like have any kind of detector, right? And you can change how sensitive it is, right? If you have the sensitivity really low, now you're only seeing the real big things, right? You turn that sensitivity up and whoa, everything opens up. You know why I like that idea? First of all, it is like, why haven't we done that already to see? The other thing is, if you think about SETI, for example, the people that are using radio signals to look around in outer space all the time, they're not finding anything. And the experts and the physicists will go back and say, well, I've watched a lot of stuff about it, why they might not be finding stuff. And the answer there is, well, we're not looking for the right messages, right? Or they're using a different form of communication than what we would be expecting. And that actually makes sense. If there is a unification theory, then they may be using some type of faster and light communication. That might be possible. And if they're flying around there, they're not going to be using necessarily radio waves for it. They might be using gravitational waves to float around, right? So we might just not be looking in the right way. So that's something that I would like to have people keep in the back of their minds is what happens if LIGO changes the sensitivity? Are we going to see crafts flying around everywhere, the signatures of them flying around? Pretty interesting thought.
I think it's interesting you talking about the scientists and things that are going on there and the research they're doing. I would say 99.97% of the population, we have no idea what any of these labs are doing. People don't even know where the labs are or what the labs are. And the thing is, most of these labs, especially the government-funded ones, you can't get on the property of. They have tours, certain times of years. You can see these facilities. They're not going to tell you anything. The people that work there don't talk about it. It's all classified. They don't talk to anyone else about it. And people are like, well, if they knew this technology existed, they would tell the world,
Wrong.
It's weaponized autism, all right? And they know it. These people aren't going to tell anyone. They don't like to talk to people.
You got non-stick pans now. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, be happy with Velcro, bro. Go back to your basement.
Well, let's talk about that too, because there's a few aspects of that I've learned about. First is the aspect that a lot of these people who are really smart, who are engineers and scientists, they're not necessarily the most social people in general, right? It's very easy to manipulate them, scare them, make them feel like they need to be quiet. We also have to realize that just from looking at the whole case, another thing we've learned is that a lot of people defer to authority, right? Way more than we thought, right? I don't remember the Milgram experiment, I think it is, where the basic idea of like how the Nazis would have killed all these people is because people just adhere to authority.
Did what they're told. Yeah.
They do what they're told.
Electric shock.
It's the electric shock.
So they'll shock somebody until they die, right? Yes. And that's the same reason why some of these people will keep this stuff secret. Other people do it because they get off on it, because they know the truth and that they know that nobody else does, right? And they get off on that idea of that. Then there's the people that are getting paid millions of dollars. And it may be a crossover of all these things that they have you have huge incentive not to say anything. If you're getting paid, you have inside information, you can profit off of it. So if you look at it from that lens, you go, oh, okay, this actually makes much more sense. Eric Weinstein was talking to Jesse Michaels and Hal Puthoff. I personally think that Hal Puthoff knows for sure. I mean, the way he's sitting on the couch and just going, yeah, the aerospace companies have advanced technology. I know it for a fact. I'm just going, whoa, that's like, people should be listening to this guy, man. He's been engineer for like 50 years with the government, and he's just
huge
telling you guys.
That's a huge statement.
Yeah. And then, Eric Davis is going, well, somebody would say something if that was the case. They couldn't be hiding this. Yes, they are hiding it. Eric Davis, get your pitchfork out, buddy. Start sharpening it, man. I'm just telling you straight up. They're hiding it. It's easy for them to hide. A lot easier than people think. And there's no incentive for these people to reveal it, right? And some of them are. Some of the ones that are not fully within the government, that are the contractors. We heard this guy whose name, he only goes by Nico. He went on a podcast. I can't remember which one it was. And he had been a contractor for Lockheed. And he's coming out there literally saying, we've got teleportation. We've got, I think he said like force fields, all this other very similar stuff that I've been saying. Right. And some of them do come out and say it. And what happens when they do? Everyone goes, who's this guy? What's his credentials? Why should I listen to him? He's just telling stories. Right. And that's why it's so easy, because it's so easy to discredit people. Nobody ever goes, I'm going to go look into the science and see if what this guy's saying is true. They don't ever do that. They just go, unless I heard it from CNN or whatever my trusted authorities are, then I'm just going to dismiss it right out of hand.
Yeah.
That's how the real world plays out.
You touched on something amazing there. One of the things to say, what are their credentials? Where do they come from? Not only that, like they're like, so what are they publishing? Why aren't they publishing in peer review? It's like the people who work at these. So if you work at like Lockheed Martin, really, you wouldn't work at Lockheed Martin. You work at a subdivision of Lockheed Martin that's housed in Lockheed Martin, that is then housed on a DOE property site that's under armed military guard. That's how it would work. 2, they got this guy out of a master's program. They said, hey, bro, you're doing really good work. You're a professor. We would like to hire you right now. Well, I'm working for my PhD. You could do that for us if you want. Nobody cares. I'm going to go ahead and pay you $700,000 a year right now. Done. They don't have to talk to anyone. They don't want a conflict. They just want to do science. They're solving problems. That's what they want. That's what it is. That's what it is.
It's even better than that. So you ready? Because I've learned a little bit how this works, right? So some of them are just contractors. Even the ones that are full DoD contractors, they're actually contracting for Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman. They're traveling around the country. They're going to these exact labs that you're talking about. They have to sign multiple NDAs every time they go into the lab. They have to sign an NDA.
2 of them on this show.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure you've heard it.
Them, no, they're my friends. We couldn't ask them anything about any of that, though.
And that's the funny part is, like, once anything they see on the inside, they're putting their phones in Faraday bags, right? They're making sure that this stuff can't be traced. Yeah. Nothing they use in there can leak out. So they're very careful. Like the people that are the smart ones that do talk are very careful about what they say because they can't break their NDAs, right? But they can use some of the information to patent some of the science on the side that they can produce in their own labs, right? Yeah. And this is how they're making the money, right? Is that not only from their contract jobs, but then they can have, and even look at people like Sean Kirkpatrick. I'm just going to shine a light on this guy, right? The AARO guy that everybody hates. He actually has his own LLC, guys. It's a little spoiler alert. He's probably getting huge money for that. He knows the stuff is real, and he's lying about it because he's getting a juicy contract from the government to do some of this exact same research, right? And I don't know the exact nature of his research, but look into his LLC. Even Ross Coulthart blew up the LLC. Follow the money. You'll find out why these people are lying, and you'll find out that they are hoarding the technology. And it is, like the conspiracy theorists say, it's a group of elite people, the politicians, the rich people, whatever. They get connected to some of these people. They find out it's real. And then what's their choice? If they know about some advanced technology, let's say they've got some kind of over unity device, a free energy device, right, that you can unplug it and it's just producing energy there. It doesn't require gas or anything. And they're paying money for that. Why would they reveal that to anybody, right? First of all, you do reveal it. Everyone's going to go, you're lying, you're cheating, you're a scumbag. There's no way that's real. You've got secret batteries in there or whatever, right? Then the other side of it is the people that make that whatever just want to profit off it themselves, right? So if people are doing that, they don't want other people to know, because the more people that know about that, the more competition there is, the more the price gets driven down, right? It's just basic economics. And so what that develops is this two-tiered system. It develops an elite that has access to this information technology. There might even be medical healing technology out there that the public just 100%. Has no idea about, that people would think is like crackpot technology, because that's what this kind of unification theory can lead to that. I haven't really dug too much into that, but it wouldn't surprise me. And this is also what leads to this breakaway civilization, right? And I wouldn't think of it like there's a hidden civilization. There might be, but I don't think of it that way. It's more of like just the elites end up forming this covert group, like it's a big club and you're not involved, right? And that's what the breakaway civilization is. And it's just like how they say it's not what you know, it's who you know. This even goes back to the plane, right? When I start to think of the motivations for why you would do this, is that it's such a huge risk to show this technology off in case videos like this were to leak. Somebody potentially had to be pretty important on that plane, in my opinion. That's why I like the VIP scenario, right? Somebody was on that plane that was important, that was connected, that was in this circle of elites in this breakaway civilization, and that's why they did it to the plane. Because otherwise, they don't give a shit about those people. They're just going to let them crash and die.
Exactly. That's the government. So one of the interesting things, like you're talking about these different companies and contracting, that's how all it's done. Nobody ever really works for anyone. It's all contract. Everybody's a contract.
Yep.
Very few people work for anything. If they do, it's very specific agencies. Like here's a great one of an example. I don't know if everyone's aware of. Have you ever heard of Radiance Technologies?
I had heard of it, but
Huntsville, Alabama.
Oh, it's always Huntsville, Alabama, man.
Or
they have the most PhDs, right?
Well, that is not true. There's another city.
Okay, what's the other one?
We'll talk about it later.
He's like, that's my city. But this goes into the Amy.
I didn't say that.
Too. You revealed it. I'm an investigator, man. I deduced this stuff quickly.
So you have, do you know who Travis Taylor is?
Yeah. So
Skinwalker Ranch.
Oh, is that the Radiance Technology ones? I watched
Radiance
the videos.
Technology. Yeah,
I watched the video of that.
Yeah, so they do a lot of.
He's been discredited.
Things. Yeah, they look at optics. They look at.
I mean, they basically said, I saw a clip where they're literally talking about how they're making UFO technology.
Yeah,
right?
so
and they're just doing it in the open.
The biggest key piece of information, like you're talking about people running patents for several things, and this is how just for anyone else, you're about to get a master class and how people are paid by the government when you're an actual information agent, right? You can go through there and they're always put it out like they are telling you the truth, like hypersonics, energy weapon, directed energy, cyber, AI, space, intelligence assets, fields, and counterintelligence. What does an optical physics lab have to do with counterintelligence? Do you know who else gets paid by them? Lou Elizondo.
Oh yeah. And here's the thing: they don't care. Like like I was saying before, right? They don't care about getting the information out there. It's not in their best interest to get the information out there. And why? Look at all the backlash that I've gotten. Look at what's been going on the last week, just from the idea that I might have been messaged by Joe Rogan. Just from that alone.
I love.
Why would these people take all this flack, right? Why would anyone want to take all this flack by coming out with these exotic claims about this kind of science, right? I'm even second guessing whether or not it was the right idea. You know, I've always just been a normal guy. So absolutely, you know, like it's not hard for me to believe anymore that there's, you know, that they're hiding. It turns out, from what I've learned the last 6 months, my own little awakening, it's way, way, way easier than I thought. Way easier than I thought.
Yes. And I got to be honest, man, when I saw that you retired, I mean, I put out a thing. It's sad. I saw you liked it and all that jazz. And, you know, we like you. We consider you a friend from the get-go. We've definitely been here for you and in your corner. But I'm kind of happy that you can go back to somewhat of a normal life away from these insane people. Because we do this for fun. Sometimes it's trolling. Sometimes it's interesting. Sometimes I get to talk to interesting people like yourself and others that I get to fill out personal questions for. But like, and I think the very first time I told you is like, dude, if you could get away and get out, you should get away and get out. Like, run, bro.
Yeah, I wish they'd sent me my ScarJo clone, or they had paid me the $10 million that I asked for. It would have been a lot better. But no, and it's not necessarily the end, right? Like it's open-ended a little bit, and I'm not sad about it. Like if people are wondering, like, are you sad about what you're doing right now? Like the answer is we've accomplished so much. Like this has done enough, right? Just look at how many followers I have right now just from all of this too, right?
Yeah.
This has definitely been this has been an influential campaign in terms of, you know, I do believe it still is an information war. And I think this pushed the needle a little bit, maybe not a ton, but a little bit, right? Where people are now kind of wondering what are we really capable of versus all these UFOlogy, you know, heroes that are out there that never are talking about teleporting planes and superconductivity, right? Like that was what's so disappointing about the Jeremy Corbell thing, where I'm just sitting there thinking like, I finally had a clip of him saying that this can be turned into a weapon, and that's why it's classified above nukes, right? Yeah. And you think about that. If this is technology is classified above nuclear weapons, the government's going to go to any length to cover it up, right? And all we've gotten out of it is a cloud picture and a non-matching pyromania one frame. That's all. That's the best they could do. If that's the case, damn, I think this is pretty damn successful. Absolutely. Right? Like the way the evidence is overwhelming. So, you know, and I just think that, you know, as time goes on, the technology will start to leak out. They will mess up again. Maybe they already have, and we haven't figured it out. Just like these videos, right? It took us 10 years.
I think they have.
They probably have
twice. Yeah. But
So, I think that'll be awesome in the future. And I think that I do think that I'll be vindicated or validated. I think people like Salvatore Paez will be vindicated. When it comes to politics, I've become a new single issue voter. Previously, my single issue was against anyone who was pushing disinformation. But now my issue is whoever would reveal this technology, because I think it needs to get out there. And I think that then the only question is, and I had a great space with Jake Chansley about this earlier this week, is how do we get the information out there without somehow disclosing the doomsday weapons, right? I do not want North Korea to have a doomsday weapon, or some terrorist organization. Or exactly. Or some kid who, has been depressed and has been lied to by the TV and now feels like he wants to press the button, Correct. So there needs to be a way to do it. And I think that Jake had a really good response too, actually. Like he impresses me every time I talk to this guy, and people want to call him the QAnon shaman and all this fake bullshit, which he's definitely not. Is that, he said that we would develop legislation around it. We would find ways to detect when people are, the same way we do when people are trying to build bombs, right? There's various ingredients in order to do it. If this technology is really quantum field theory and general relativity, then we would have some kind of gravitational wave detector, right? And we see somebody trying to mess around with it, and we go knock on their door, right? And we background check them or whatever. And maybe we're already doing that. Honestly, I don't know.
I think we are.
Because if that's the case, then let's get out the room temperature superconductivity, right? Let's start changing the world.
Yeah, so something on that same level of detection I think he's on. Did I ever tell you I met him?
Who?
Jake?
Oh, in person?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Wait, were you there?
Let's not talk about these things.
Okay. We gotta be careful what we talk about. We're on YouTube right now.
There are trucks that exist, they keep in key cities, and they can detect how many X-rays are going off in dentist's office from I think it's 8 or 9 miles away.
Wow.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable.
MRIs I'd be very curious about, because apparently MRIs use very similar
that is too.
magnetic technology to what this would lead to.
It's explained to me by people smarter than myself. I just know when it comes to radiation and nuclear detection, this is what these things were tuned for back in the day. And those vehicles are 15, 18 years old, and they could do unbelievable things then. So, yeah,
Dave, I think James has rumbled you.
What? No, I've never been in her office that you can prove. I mean,
but no, he's a really cool guy, and we talked about advanced technology, suppression of it, how to get it out there, and we had an awesome space. There was 300 people in there, I just think that it's funny, because one of the first things I learned was not to prejudge people and to just go back to the basics of what I thought about all the people in UFOlogy and in the whole world, right? Because I am 100% also certain that people have disinformation campaigns run against them. Jake Chansley was absolutely one of them. If you want to call it a psyop or whatever, right? They run disinformation against him. I'm sure they've done it to people like Tucker Carlson. Elon Musk has had it happen to him as well. Rogan's had it happen to him during COVID, 100%. Carrie Lake, I think, had it happen to her during the Arizona election as well. All of a sudden, there's all these weird attacks going against these people. You can kind of see it because you see the same patterns.
I would argue as well. I know it's not a cool thing to say. You've got to be pretty wary about what you say about what it was on YouTube. I'd argue Alex Jones as well. When you actually break down the 100%. Amount of time he spoke about what he was supposed to be speaking about, it's a fucking minute segment of a show. When at the same time he was getting raked over the coals for that, I was listening to another podcast, which is a really big podcast that was doing a 3-4 hour show on that one thing. Where's the trouble there? Where's the trouble with that? With that, it's just Jones.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Jones, definitely, right? I mean, you look at the whole Sandy Hook thing in terms of what happened with him, and they vilified him to the degree,
the word.
Right? Yeah, I was trying not to as well.
They
vilified him. You can look at the Donald Trump situation, even, where they polarize people to a degree where now the truth no longer matters, where it's just a matter of they're bad. They also did it to Andrew Tate, right? And the Tate brothers. They do it to anybody who they think is an influential voice. Russell Brand as well. I mean, I could go on for days.
Who they don't have hooks into at
right.
some level.
Andrew Tate.
Yeah, if they don't have hook, and those are the people that I want to listen to, because those are the people that I think are not being controlled. The ones that are not being controlled, those are the people they go after, right? They will find anything about their history. They will blow it out of proportion, out of context, whatever is necessary. Some people make it easier than others. Andrew Tate made it really easy, right? I mean, he was running a cam girl operation, and then they just convert that to human trafficking, which is
because it turns out if you work in the sex industry, you haven't got like the highest moral fiber when you need to be turned.
Yes, it's pretty easy in those cases. And then with Russell Brand, right? Like he slept around a lot, right? So they find a weakness there. They go back 20 years. They find somebody who can tell a story. And then they crucify you for that.
Like Joe Rogan is an open drug user. You know, he's an open cannabis smoker. He's an open psychedelic user. So the minute they had a chance where they could use like odd drugs to try and use on him, they used it there.
Yes.
But the Andrew Tate thing, I can tell you, like the podcast he was on, where they decided they needed to go out with him, and it was one of the first times I ever heard of the guy. I can't remember what the podcast was called. But it was like him, and there was a glass window behind him, and it was when he was talking about lockdowns, and he was saying, if you were rich, this didn't exist, because the minute it looked strange, I got on a private plane and I flew to a different country, and that was at some point someone's listened to that and thought, you're fucked.
Oh, 100%. And it's funny because I think the Andrew Tate thing is one of the most eye-opening experiences from a red pill perspective for me regarding that. Because I had no idea who the hell he was. And then all of a sudden, I'm seeing the attacks against him, right? And in some degree, it elevated him. But what they don't really care about elevating. What they want to do is polarize the person, right?
He was a British Big Brother contestant.
Yeah. And now then he just... That's apparently his background, right? I had no idea who he was. I'm sitting there talking to my parents, and everybody's going, oh, he's an evil person. I'm going, dude, I've literally never heard of this guy. Like, why is he all over the place all of a sudden? It's like, oh, because there's a huge disinformation campaign, right? And I dug into it. We're not going to go into all that now. But absolutely, I'm 100% convinced that the U.S. government was involved in the disinformation against him in general. Definitely. The reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I see the people that fall for this level of brainwashing, even in the UFO community. One thing I didn't expect in the UFO community is that there are political lines that are drawn in the UFO community itself as well, right? You'll see a lot of these people on either side, on the side that think the stuff's real or the side that is skeptics or whatever, that it doesn't matter what you're saying. It matters what your political allegiance is, right? They go, oh, Ashton's been talking to the QAnon shaman, and they literally propagandize it and try to polarize me by association. And to me, that's also just straight up propaganda and deception. The people that are doing that out there,
I've been let down, especially there's been a couple of people that have been on this show. In fact, that like one or two of them I already had a low opinion of, but like they managed to let me down.
Yeah, and somebody was also posting. I think Theo Vaughn is somebody who I didn't really know. I used to watch him in the Road Rules MTV. What's it called? Challenge shows. I don't know if you guys are familiar with those from about 20 years ago.
A long time ago, yeah.
So yeah, the Real World Road Rules. That used to be the two big reality shows on MTV. I remember he was one of the contestants on that, and he was one of the people that kind of was a good persona. So they kept having him come back on. And now he's a big podcaster, right? And he seems like a really chill, cool guy in general. But somebody in the chat was saying, you should go on there and spill the beans about all the UFO community. And boy, could I. I mean, it is a wild west out there of these people. And, you've got both sides of the spectrum out there. People, they come at you for your political beliefs. I've got people on the believer side who I remember I was arguing with this one guy, and I'm asking him, like, how do you think the aliens got here if you don't think they can move faster than the speed of light? It's like, oh, well, the von Neumann probes, or, these maybe that they're interdimensional or whatever this stuff is. And I'm just going, wow, even the people that believe there's literally aliens visiting us are still closed-minded. Because if you think it's just von Neumann probes and you're talking about like constructed beings or AI, right? And it's the thing about it is just a very narrow scope of what's possible if that's the case, right? But if I'm saying that, oh, we can move the speed of light, now there's so many possibilities for how they could be visiting us or what the nature of the, non-human intelligence situation could be. And I just think that's really closed-minded to rule out the idea that it's possible to go faster than the speed of light. And this goes back to my my derogatory, I guess, name for everybody, which is the CNN brains, right? The people that their worldview, even when they believe in these esoteric things, their worldview is based on whatever the mainstream academia tells them is possible, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so wild about the UFO community, because you have people like that are really the true believers that still have the CNN brain, right? Then you have the ones that don't have that CNN brain and believe everything is possible, you know? And then you have the people on the skeptic side, which are also two sides of it on the skeptic side. I think what we found, I don't think I'm going to push the one question, which may push us a little too far based on our conversation here. But on the skeptic side, you have the same types of people, the people that only believe the mainstream narratives, and you know what some of those narratives are, right? And then I think you have a lot less people on that side, but there are even some people on that side that don't believe all the mainstream narratives, but are still militant skeptics as well.
Yeah, what really gets me with this is the people that should be thinking about this stuff and or at least having fun with it. That's the main thing. What I've noticed, a lot of these people that are the ones that are really bitter and come after you really hard are the ones when you actually watch their content, they really look like they hate what they're doing. They don't seem happy doing what they're doing. It's weird. But like even if I didn't think the videos are real, and I do think the videos are real. I would be the one that's going, right, well, there's a guy over there that's stumbled upon these videos. He's doing his best to prove it. I fucking hope he proves it.
Yes,
I hope he proves me wrong. And there was none of that from them. It was weird.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was on the space last night. Keemstar's going, he keeps getting asked, like, what do you think the videos are? Because like they keep thinking like this is some kind of gotcha. And Keemstar's like, well, I don't really think they're real, but I don't know that they're fake, right? And I support Ashton's work because he's been putting all this effort in. That's what Keemstar's opinion is. And that's a very reasonable opinion, right?
He's been a real cool guy through this, hasn't he?
He's been really cool around it. Yeah. And that's a very reasonable opinion, right? But then people are going, see? It's like, wait, what? Like, that's a very emotional reaction, a very emotional take. It does feel like a lot of the people out there hate what they do, right? That they are just doing it because it gets them the anger that they're like looking for. Or I don't know. A lot of these people too have like these savior complexes where they feel like you believe something that's not true. I have to prove to you that it's not. Or it's like, that's just such an unhealthy way to go through life. Right?
You're hurting people. You're hurting people.
I've heard that a lot.
You're
literally. I love when they say literally.
It's like, yeah, you're hurting people. That's the false compassion argument, right? Where they don't know themselves. They have no basis. They're not themselves scientists, but then they go yell at you and say, well, this is pseudoscience. Was like, but you're not a scientist either. So you don't know. And actually, I think Keemstar was telling somebody that yesterday as well. It's like, you're saying for sure that you know these are fake, but you don't know that, right? Like, that's the big rub, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that those people should step away from the internet for a while. The people that are out there, they're not enjoying it. This is what I want to say to people. I say this several times, which is my motto. The way I've looked at the world is there's two types of people. You can break it down. There's two types of people. People that are treading their own path, that are building things and bringing people up. And then you have people that are putting barriers in the way of people and trying to tear people down. You're one of those two people. I think that if you go and interact with people, you'll find that almost everybody out there is one of those two. People should strive to be somebody that's trailblazing their own path and building things up. Whatever that is, you find your hobby, you find your passion, go with that. Don't worry about what other people are doing, right? That has no bearing on your life at all, right? And then if we all were to do that, I think the world would be a much better place.
Mm. And if you need reminded about it, go and look at Julian Doreen's like impressions.
He deleted that podcast actually. And that's the other thing too, is that like, this is one thing I wonder is what's the difference between arrogance and ego and just being confident, right? Mm-hmm. Like, where's the line exactly in that? I'm not 100% sure. Because I do give people honest advice, my honest opinion and honest advice. And every time I do, it feels like they double down against it. Right. And then like going back to the Joe Rogan saga, I literally told people, I'm not lying. Stop trying to do this. It's just going to, flip on you in a really, really bad way. And they keep doubling down. Even after I show the DMs to the Skyfire people like the other day. They doubled down again. Then they start saying, "Oh well, there's no verification tag, so he must have fabricated." I'm like, guys, stop doubling down. I'm not lying. They don't ever listen, right? And that's kind of the scary part about it, in my opinion. If they just listen to me and listen that I'm just being honest with them and took the honest advice, I think that there'd be a lot less of this turmoil and toxicity and going back and forth, because I don't like it, man. Like, you guys probably seen some of my troll hunt videos that I've been doing, right? Because I just think it's kind of funny how like emotional some of these people get about something that has nothing to do with them, right? And you read the comments and they're so over the top that you can't help but like find some humor in it. But that wouldn't be necessary if people just chilled out and focused on their own stuff, stop doubling down on trying to prove that I'm a liar or I'm wrong or whatever it is. Like, even if I'm wrong, right? Who cares, right? Like, what?
It holds no bearing on anyone's life. There's
Exactly.
no effect, and people take it so personally that you have an opinion. It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Yeah. Have you found it difficult at any time? Like just the amount of negativity? Because it's been a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. But the thing about it, guys, is that I'm over 40 years old. I've seen the internet start to finish in terms of social media. And when I was younger in my 20s, I was probably one of those trolls as well, the bunker skeptic type people trolls. I'm honest about the fact that I used to be a CNN brain type person as well. And you just learn to deal with it, right? You learn to take it in stride. You learn not to take people's outrage too seriously. You learn how to get over it, right, and move on. You learn how not to take it too far. And I think that is a skill, weirdly enough. It's like actually a skill on social media. And I think even going back to Keemstar, I think he's the master of it, right? Like, he's unshakable. Everybody tries to cancel him. He comes back in a very cool, leveled manner every single time. I'm not on that level, but I'm pretty damn close. And that's what I think makes it good for me, is that it doesn't matter how many of these people come after me or whatever. The only thing I do get worried about is that some of these people might physically come after me because they get so upset. Like, some of these people are actually really pushing it, right? People are actually trying to take my job away now, you know? Like, that's where it's like going way too far. And I really hope people don't try to do that, because now you're really borderlining on like maybe even criminal behavior, but definitely legal liability, right? If I were to lose my job over somebody, first of all, we're going to get your name. You're going to have a lawsuit coming your way, 100%. And I don't want to do that to anybody. I really, really don't. So people that are going that far with it, you need to take a step back, get off the internet for a little while, realize like what your behavior is like, and really reflect, honestly.
There's no end of crazy people in these things, and it blows my mind. I mean, not really. I mean, I get why crazy people would be attracted to it, but like the physical thing, that's real. That's a real concern. You should be concerned.
Yeah.
They make pocket-sized handguns for a reason. SIG 365, highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Get the 15 or 17 round mags they have now for them. I mean, it just fits in the palm. It's fantastic. I didn't even tell you the ammo you need. But
I may come back for you for those side recommendations, but just for the record, in case I'm not suicidal, I actually don't have a firearm. So if somehow I end up dying from 2 bullets to the back of the head, you'll know it wasn't me. And I'm not afraid either, right? I'm not afraid of any of that stuff. I mean, I think that you could rationally argue that if this stuff's real, there might be a physical threat. I just don't care. I don't know. I don't know if that's something that's good with me or bad with me.
If it was physical, it would have been done already.
I think that's probably
they've stopped your climb, and the social trolls are out. And like someone had said earlier in a comment, I'm sorry, I can't remember who said it, but they put this out so long ago. Somebody war gamed this, right? Somebody just all right. At some point, this may come up. What are we going to do? And as technology advances, they do. Again, like, to me personally, when they all came out against you like that, and it made me go, wow, there's something to this and to this guy. Those were long-term seeds. They didn't care how the podcast was curved. They didn't care that it did that. What they wanted is the day Joe Rogan or Sean Ryan or someone like that came, they just saw the headline and like, nah, I don't want to do,
they want to draw enough doubt and controversy that they won't look at it, because they need to stop the growth, right? Like you said. And interesting, those debunks always came out when there was a big peak, right? The first debunk came out on Reddit by a 1-day-old Reddit account when it got too busy on Reddit. Like, that was for like 10 days. Every single post was about these videos in August. And then they make it go away. with one fake debunk that doesn't even match.
Mm.
And then I take the reins. They did not expect that, right? Because
Mhm.
that type of disinformation works almost all the time. And then people stop looking at it. And I took the reins and I pressed it. And we even got Kim.com on there. And it got to a point where I was getting like 20 million impressions a week, right? And that was just me. Like the case was getting 100 million impressions a week probably from people. And then all of a sudden this cloud debunk appears out of nowhere, right? And now it gets shot down. Stop looking at it, everybody. Right, there's no accident there. Let's just be honest. I don't think there's an accident there.
I think they were late with the cloud debunk, because if they'd have got that out before the video of the orb penetrating the cloud, where you could see it going through,
that was the problem, right? And it was weird how it came out right after that, because it was that same week, as if they were like working on the plan, right? And they're like, oh shit. He just showed that the orb is penetrating the cloud. Now they know that there's no way it could be 2D assets, right? And they're like, just push it out anyway. Have all the people on social media, all the skeptics retweet it in the middle of the night. And that's exactly what happened, right?
Yeah. I mean, they got Kim to step away. They got Kim to step away.
And I don't really want to go into Kim. I like him. I talked to him. I think he's a good guy, but his assets are controlled by the U.S. government, like 100% controlled by the U.S. government due to the copyright lawsuit against him. So, one of the methods of disinformation is what they do is they get people on your side, and then they have those people flip. And then what that does is it changes everybody's perception, right? It's a very, very powerful way to do it.
It was interesting. Like with that it shifted a lot. And again, like as I was watching it, I was
considering no one was paid out, right? Nobody actually met the bounty as well.
No, it's amazing.
One thing I want to say too is that there's from the science. Let's go into the science perspective, getting a little less out of the trolley way into the science perspective. One thing that I found and I posted the other week is faster than light communication is possible, right? If we can teleport a plane, then faster than light communication is also possible. That's much easier to believe. And the guy that figured this out is the guy's Nimitz. He is, I believe, German, and he had this quantum tunneling experiment where he set up these prisms and he shot light through them. And he found when he shoots light through the one prism to the other one, the area in between just gets instantly transported to the other side, like just completely skips the whole area in the middle. And therefore the information, you can create a faster than light communication system using this, just like you could use like Morse code or something like that, right? To be able to communicate between two distant points faster as fast as the speed of light, actually faster than the speed of light, instantaneously. And it was argued that it was evanescent waves that was causing it. And so then in like 2005 or 6, he was supposed to prove it, and he just didn't show to the experiment, just didn't show up. It wasn't until 2019 that two other younger scientists recreated the experiment and proved that it was real and won first prize in a physics experiment doing it. Now, why is this also interesting? I dug into this, and I'm actually going to do a post at some point when I get some more time on my hands, where I'm going to do a follow-up post to my other faster than light communication post from last week, where I dug into this. I found out all that information, and it turns out as well, there was one very well-read person on actually a Reddit related to the EM drive, the electromagnetic drive, this cone that they can shoot microwaves through. Yeah. It was actually arguing that worked via the same evanescent waves that the faster than light communication works. And I went, whoa, now we're starting to realize, like, I always thought this EM drive thing seemed like it got suppressed, where people are going, that can't be
it was a
possible.
huge deal there for a while. Everyone was like, this is the future. And then it's gone.
Yep. And now you realize there's a lot of connection between some of this. This guy gets silenced because he's figured out these evanescent waves that are moving faster than the speed of light. And the only explanation is that our reality is like this matrix where every point in reality around us is connected, but we just don't see it, right? And that's how they can travel that fast. Then those evanescent waves can explain why we're getting some thrust out of a cone where we just shoot microwaves through them, right? And so, I think that a lot of this technology is connected, and that's why my next goal is really to focus on technology. That's the stuff I find fun, right? Yeah. Conspiracies are pretty fun as well, but there's not much more meat on the bone of the MH370 conspiracy. The only next things that we've got out there are the debris. Apparently, how should I say this? I highly believe they falsified the debris models that they created. The first model, they threw some debris in the ocean near where they thought the plane would have crashed, and there was no chance it would have gotten to the Reunion Islands. So then they go, okay, ignore that, everybody. And then they get the Americans to give them an actual 777 wing, and they throw that in the water. And then they decide, well, that's going to make it. We're good. They don't actually like have it go all the way there. They just decide it's going to be there. People like Jeff Wise and others, poured salt on it and said, no, actually, if based on those models, the barnacle growth wouldn't be consistent with what they found where it actually washed up. And we're talking 3,000 miles that this debris needs to float, right? And at the same time, they're arguing that all the rest of the debris sank, except for a giant 8-foot long flaperon and a couple other tiny pieces that they found, right? So the debris is way more questionable than people actually think out there. It's very possible that they falsified models. As we know from looking at COVID, models don't mean very much with respect to reality. Models are not science. The scientific method doesn't have models anywhere included in it. That's actually running real experiments and watching the real outcomes. And so
whatever that may be.
Yeah.
Whatever that may be.
And then we found Rolls-Royce has connections to Lockheed Martin. Surprise, surprise. They've had a $1 billion contract to provide engines and power for Lockheed Martin, which, boy, Rolls-Royce never released their data to the public. They would have had the engine data that would prove exactly what happened to the plane. They even did a Wall Street Journal article that got retracted where the Wall Street Journal was arguing that Boeing and Rolls-Royce showed that the engines were shut down naturally, not that they didn't potentially crash. And then that got retracted the same day or a couple days within the South Indian Ocean narrative coming up. And then what was my last one? And these are like the last pieces that I'm potentially going to be doing. I just want to give you guys a little bit of a spoiler on them.
Ripple Moon?
Yeah, they're Ripple Moon. So, and then the other part about Inmarsat. So Inmarsat actually, the SATCOM device is easily hackable. And all they would have had to do is basically change one number in the Inmarsat logs, and all of a sudden they're looking in a completely different location. It's also possible that they even flipped the plane out. The GA Telesis plane that was bought in October of 2013, no one really knows where that plane was exactly. Some people are arguing it was sitting around in Israel. So now there's this idea of, well, what if they manipulated the SATCOM on it, flipped the planes out somehow, and now you've got a different plane, or there were just operatives on board and they manipulated the SATCOM. This can explain why it was only pinging one of the satellites, when if it had been pinging both satellites, they would have been able to triangulate the position. And
before we go, we need to make sure we are not assuming anything and anyone in Israel or Mossad or anyone had anything to do with this or the black box or any of these.
Yeah, let's be careful about who we implicate here.
Rumored that the plane was there, which we all agree, right, guys, is absurd. It clearly wasn't.
Clearly very, very absurd.
Yes.
But
Continue,
yeah.
Sorry.
So then the Inmarsat things, and also we found, so not only the Inmarsat, all these SATCOMs are easily hackable. And the guy that actually looked into this was Victor of the Independent Group, the guy who's been arguing with me about my crazy ideas or whatever. And he's been giving me some of the strongest evidence for why, like, the official narrative is complete nonsense. But not just that, somebody actually found that at least one plane, Inmarsat said that this plane was flying around the sky based on their pings and is actually on the ground somewhere. So there's a lot of doubt as to whether or not these satellite pings really mean anything related to where this plane actually went. So those are going to be, and then one last one is the idea of espionage. So I've been on your guys' podcast like 5 times, probably.
Something like that.
And I've never really been promoting the espionage angle very much, right? I've always been promoting this idea that we're trying to save our guys, right? That there's this accidental fire.
What happened to the people and the science? Yeah.
Oddly enough, like from the whole story, I've always been down with the disappearing plane. It was the government being kind. I couldn't get.
Yeah, that was the part that most people can deal with, right?
I was always
exactly what I'm getting at is that the biggest thing a lot of people have the issue with is governments doing something out of the good of their heart, you know? And now one of the last pieces I'm going to do is espionage. The idea that the government's not doing this out of the good of their heart, that the creepy letter to Ashton is, maybe it's not 100% accurate, but that it brings in some really good points, brings in even more evidence, the Iranian passengers, the SATCOM potentially being hacked, the defectors, and that the Russian GRU intel report might also be accurate, which is this idea that they were tracking what was getting on the plane. This could also coincide why there's 500 pounds of lithium-ion batteries on this passenger plane, why all the Freescale semiconductor scientists are all sitting next to each other on the plane, which is already way too many people, but now they're also sitting next to each other, meaning that their tickets were probably booked together as well. Why some of them also had their family with them. Like if you're going on a 1-week training course, do you bring your whole family with you? It's pretty damn weird. To me, you'd leave the family at home. So there's a lot of sketchy stuff in my mind that now makes me think, and I was actually talking to Florence Changi about this the other day, because I wanted to get her opinion on it. And she's still not all on board. Like the biggest, I think it's okay to talk about what her opinion is.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest difference between her opinion and my opinion is that she doesn't think the plane turned back around when it went dark. She thinks that they falsified, the radar, or that the Buttersworth, which is outside of Penang, there's a big military base right there that there's no way it wouldn't have seen the plane. So her opinion, a lot of people have this opinion, is that, okay, the plane went towards Vietnam, or it ended in the South China Sea or whatever. Whereas my opinion is, no, it turned back around. That radar data is accurate. They're just hiding communications, hiding radar data that this is out there, right? And that the plane disappears in the South, in the Nicobar Islands. But she doesn't have any problem with the idea that there's the U.S. government's implicated. She is the one who has quoted the nephew saying that, being told that his uncle was collateral damage, that the White House was calling, that I believe it was Indonesian police officer, or maybe I got that wrong. I think it was Indonesian police officer, knew exactly what happened to the plane. All these other things, like you look at it, you add it up, and you go, if somebody's talking about collateral damage, that's not really a rescue scenario, right? That's more of a scenario of something was planned, and then, yeah, your family's not coming back.
Mm-hmm. I could say something that'd be kind of dark, but these guys might as well go for it, right? We're near the end. Not saying that this is true, just saying maybe it's something to think about. People with high level access to things like that, especially science nerds, typically if they can take their wives to conferences, happens all the time, they don't take their kids because the government doesn't want them to, because the government wants them to come back. And I'm not saying that there's a threat. No one would say that there's a threat if they didn't come back. But maybe, I'm not saying.
Yeah, one last thing I want to address too, I don't know if I've addressed it yet, is that I've not been, I guess I did address it, but I have not been paid off by the government or anything to stop. Nothing like that. In fact, I wouldn't consider what I'm doing stopping. I would consider more like changing gears, right? It's just, there's not much more to investigate regarding the MH370 investigation in general. And this gives people, again, an opportunity to step back, look at it from back here, as opposed to so invested emotionally like a lot of people are. And it allows me to look into the science, which can corroborate the videos, right? If I can learn enough about electrical engineering where I can explain all the scientific concepts myself without having to rely on these other experts that I've been having to rely on, then I think that goes a long way towards future credibility towards this type of technology. Even if the videos are somehow fake, I think that the truth is that this is still a conspiracy, that the narratives that are out there that are a lie, and I still believe that the science and the technology is still real, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is so important, is that even if these videos are somehow fake, well, then they accidentally showed technology that we really do have, and that we can then explain it, right? And if we can explain it and move the needle, then I think that will go a long way to getting the justice for the families, for the witnesses who were discredited, for the pilots who were vilified, which pisses me off. And then for Edward C. Lynn, this is another guy who I'm like, I had somebody coming at me trying to claim that he's not the guy. There's no evidence that he's the guy, man. I'm sure if he wasn't the guy, he'd have been talking to me by now. He'd have been coming to me saying, stop talking about me. Stop saying my name. I rolled the dice. I went all in on this, right? Like this guy could have been suing me, right, for saying his name. But no, he's the guy. I'm very, very, very sure, 99.9% sure. And those people all deserve vindication. So lastly, what I want to say is one of my other letters I plan on doing is, I don't know the exact name of it, probably going to be called like the Edward C. Lynn PSYOP or something like that, where they kind of lied to people about what this guy was being charged with, right? Because I think that General Flynn knows Edward C. Lynn potentially personally, and I think he knows that Edward Lynn got railroaded. And if Trump ends up winning the election, I have a very strong feeling that General Flynn will be finding a position in his administration and might be able to get Edward C. Lynn a pardon. So I potentially plan on writing a letter that implores General Flynn via some of the evidence around Edward Lynn to, make sure he gets that pardon. Because no matter what, this guy deserves a pardon, right? He shouldn't be having this plea deal hanging over his head. He did his time in prison, great, but he needs to be fully vindicated. Like he needs to get his rank back. He was somebody that was screwed over no matter how you look at it. Even if somehow he wasn't related to these videos, I can still tell the guy was screwed over. He was not a spy. He's always been a patriot. Looking at his whole history, right? Maybe he's a guy that doesn't mind, sleeping around with a prostitute. And maybe that is true. But hey, we're all men. We're all weak sometimes, right? That's not something that you should be going to prison for 6 years over and being vilified in the media, what have you. So he deserves vindication, 100%.
Well, man, I think it's about that time to wrap up. If you hang out for a second, we'd like to chat with you before you disappear. Sure. This has been a great podcast, man. And I love that we got your confession early on. It's going to be a big deal. My handlers were going to be really tickled.
I can already see Skyfire News clipping it and posting it out there. Ashton confesses.
Wouldn't that be awesome? You got to admit, that'd be hilarious. Like
if we could just do it again, but with that at the bottom of the screen, that'd be great.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate it.
to get that merch. Now, everybody should, anybody who's watching this either live or later on, you should be following the Alien Addict guys. Buy some of their merch, support their work. These are some of the real ones that are out there. If you're into conspiracies, weird stuff, these guys are awesome. If you're somebody out there who gets a request, you should talk to these guys. I saw their interview with Jon Stewart the other week. It was a great interview.
Thank you.
These guys they're great to talk to in general. So thanks, guys. I've been liking our conversations.
I was too. I look forward to having more of them as well.
Definitely.
You too.
See you later, guys. Good night.
Peace.